Hello and welcome to my new channel, my new podcast, Creative Minds with Emily Eva Makes. This is just a little bit of an introduction video to tell you more about who I am and why I'm doing this. So, my name is Emily, Emily Eva Makes on Instagram, and I am English, but I'm living in Granada in Spain, and I've been here for about 9 years now, nearly, I think. No, 8 years. Anyway, it's been a long time. I am an English teacher in an academy here in Spain. I'm also a translator of knitting patterns from Spanish to English. I used to be an editor of books in English. I'm a knitter. I'm a crocheter. I'm I don't know. I'm many things. I have a very busy mind that doesn't like to focus on one thing. So I have lots of different things, but my passion is knitting. And so I had thought about doing a knitting podcast. I watch a lot of knitting podcasts and I do love them, but I wanted to do something a little bit different. So I had this idea instead that's kind of combining creativity with mental health. This idea was born in the pandemic because I know that I had a very tough time in the pandemic, and I saw a lot of other people were struggling a lot too, not just with the actual health worries, but the isolation, the problems with losing work or finances or just instability. There were a lot of problems that came around from the pandemic, not just health wise. And of course, losing people. So I could see that it was affecting everybody's mental health a lot. And I, for one, was totally isolated. I had nobody at home. I didn't even have a pet. Of course, we were doing video calls and stuff to keep in touch with people, and it was lovely. But it's not the same as having somebody there. And I know that it really affected me not having like physical touch from anyone for a long time. It definitely affected me at the time, and it kind of lingered for a long time afterwards as well. So I know that there's a lot of issues that came around from that. And I thought this has always been something that I thought we don't talk about enough. We don't talk about mental health enough. And people always say that we should, but we find it difficult and it just doesn't happen. So I thought, well, maybe a podcast in which I could interview different people and tell our stories, our journeys with mental health, our struggles, but also what we do to kind of deal with it, to help ourselves feel better, and preferably creative things. Obviously, it could be anything. People do sport or just traveling or whatever. For me, it's creative things. I knit, I do crochet, I paint, I color, I write, lots of things. So creativity was a big part of it. But yeah, I wanted to interview people and give people a space to talk about mental health, to get things off their chest a little bit, and to share some ideas of things that help us and that might help other people. So that was the idea back in 2020 in the pandemic. And then I spent nearly 3 years thinking about it and finding all the reasons not to, basically. Thinking that I don't have the time, it's a lot of work, I don't want to do all the show notes, I don't want to do all the links, I don't want to keep up to date with Instagram. Who am I going to interview? What am I going to ask them? I don't know what I'm doing. I need a better camera, I need a better microphone. All the problems. I only saw the negatives. Until December 2022, when I had a little meeting at home with a couple of knitting friends of mine, Marianella Gallo and Nicole from Time Weaver. They came to hang out and knit and stuff, and we were chatting, and I told them about this idea, and they said, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Just stop thinking about it, stop finding the problems, just do it, just start it." So I kept thinking, oh, I don't know. And then suddenly Nella was recording for her podcast. So I ended up talking about this idea on her podcast. And suddenly we were doing a prize draw for the name of my podcast when I hadn't even said I was definitely doing it. But after that, obviously that gave me the experience of seeing myself on camera, which was really, really interesting and really fun. And then all the comments from the people afterwards as well. There were a lot of comments underneath the video when they were giving ideas for different names, but they were also saying like what a good idea it was, how useful they thought it would be. Somebody told me that I gave good vibes. There was just a lot of love there. And then this month in February 23, we went to a yarn festival in Madrid called Love Yarn Madrid, and there I ran into a couple of people who had seen me on Nella's podcast. So then they were encouraging me in person as well, saying you really need to do it. When's it going to happen? So I finally thought, all right, I need to give this a go, and I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if it's going to be as it was intended to be, but I think we need to at least try. So here I am. Let's give it a go. To start with, it's just going to be my experience, a little bit about my journey and the things that I've been doing recently to help with that, to relax myself or to de-stress, whatever, just to share some of the things that I like doing. But I don't want it to end up just being a knitting podcast. I want it to still have the idea of mental health in it. Hopefully, I will do some interviews at some point with other people and get other ideas, but for now, it's just going to be me. So I'll tell you a little bit about how I've been recently, any ups and downs, what I've been doing to help with that, and I'll show you some of the things that I've been doing. And I will try and do an episode once a month, more or less, to begin with. We shall see. And I'm going to try and do each episode both in English and in Spanish, because I'm assuming it's going to be easier to talk about in English, and I'll have all the vocabulary I need in English. But I have a lot of Spanish followers, and this idea was first proposed on Nella's podcast, which is in Spanish, and it was her followers who encouraged me. So I want to do it in Spanish too. And I've also heard many times that it's easier to talk about emotional things in a different language than your native tongue, because you don't have the same emotion attached to the words. So maybe I'll find it easier to speak about it in Spanish. I don't know. At the same time, if I don't have exactly the vocabulary I need to express exactly what I want to say in Spanish, I might find it frustrating. So I think the good compromise is to do in English and in Spanish. So we'll have each episode will be recorded twice, basically. And we'll see where it goes. I don't know. Anyway, that's enough for now. Let's get on to the first episode and talk about the festivals. Bye.